So great to see you here and to have a moment to actually talk and really look into the origins of how this entire program really got started. And as I understand, you had there were a lot of issues going on, and you went through a lot of trials and tribulations. So can you tell us a little bit about that story?
Yes, and thank you for having me. So I had two children that I found out when they were in second grade that they couldn't read, actually. Everyone said they were highly intelligent, actually gifted, and I was like, how could they be gifted if they can't do their schoolwork?
Mm-hmm.
So it was the start of my journey. Comes to find out that a fantastic mentor told me that my daughter had a vision issue, nothing to do with 2020, but that's why she couldn't read, and that she hated reading. And that started my journey. I started out in California with Dr. Kejiyama, and he did an incredible job with my daughter. And I moved to Florida, and my daughter was reading perfect. And then along comes her brother, 2 years behind, and at second grade, that's the magic number. Second grade is where they start reading, and then they realize they can't read.
Okay.
They can read, but nothing goes into their brain, and they can't comprehend what they read.
Okay.
And so the journey started. It's a lot of doctors, a lot of researching, and through this time, kids lose their confidence. They don't know why they're different.
Mm-hmm.
They always lose their recess because they never get their work done on time.
Mm-hmm.
And then their behavior gets really bad. My daughter, she had anxiety and she cried all the time.
Oh.
My son, he was tougher. He would just act out and just didn't care, or acted like he didn't care. So he would start getting into trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And then it comes to find out that at one point, neither one of them would go to school anymore because they were so embarrassed that they couldn't do their schoolwork, yet they were highly intelligent. The teachers would say, they're quite capable, they just won't do it. And I don't know any kid that wakes up in the morning to go to school and just not want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
A kid wants to stay out of trouble, they want to have a good time, they don't want to be in trouble, they don't want to be yanked out of the classroom and taken to tutoring or so much stuff that doesn't help. These kids cannot do their homework by themselves. It takes them hours, and they just don't know what they read, so they can't answer questions. Mm-hmm. These kids are the very kids that get an F in language arts or whatever reading comprehension is called at their school. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that's getting Fs, and the teachers don't understand why, and they try and get an extra help. These are the kids that I want to, by second grade, have every child that we could possibly do be tested for visual and auditory processing disorders.
Right. And tell us a little bit about the story that you went through with your son, with Johnny, in terms of the road that he was taking, and tell and give us a little bit about the background, so people can get a real sense of how profound this is. And to me, what's fascinating is that this is something that can be understood so quickly, and with non-invasive, non-drug related therapies, this can be ameliorated in a huge way for people, for kids, and then how dynamics at home change completely, right?
Oh yeah, and that's important to say. So when we arrived in Florida, the teachers and the school were like, we can give a diagnosis of ADHD for my son or the high end of autism. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, but wait, he's neither one. I knew for sure he was neither one of those. So it got to the stage where his behavior, was, and he acted like he just didn't care anymore. And he didn't care about himself or what happened or how you punished him. It didn't matter, because at the end of the day, he didn't believe he would ever be able to read. And therefore, he wouldn't stay in school. So then I started making him go to school, and I pushed him in the door, and then he had anxiety, and then that turned into panic attacks. And then it was like we were right at the doctor's office saying, you know what, I can't even get him in the school door anymore. Mm-hmm. So comes to find out that boys are a lot more difficult to treat with this therapy than girls. And we had to work a little harder on him, so it took a lot longer. Therefore, he believed that it didn't work, and it was never going to work. And I was just so scared that if he didn't go to school, and if he kept getting into trouble, that he'd end up eventually falling into the criminal justice system. And I'm a retired police officer, and that is the very last thing I could let happen to my own son. Mm-hmm. So that is why I founded this nonprofit with the help of all these fantastic doctors. I've learned a lot. I should almost think I'm an expert now in spotting kids that do have this issue, and that, the ones that are failing in school. But it's hard to convince parents or teachers because they don't know what I'm talking about. It's not a medical term. They can get diagnosed. They're often misdiagnosed with dyslexia or ADD and given medication or given extra help for dyslexia, which they don't actually have. 80% of kids diagnosed with dyslexia probably have a vision issue.
Wow.
And then
Treatable. That's treatable.
Absolutely treatable. It's usually like a 6-month program. At that stage, you're there for 3 hours a night trying to do their homework with them. With this program, you practice like 20 minutes a night, and you do it 5 evenings a week. And within 6 months, you're going to be above grade level. You're going to be reading and comprehending like better than any other child in that classroom. And it's like turning on a light bulb. Once this happens, it's like now they can read. So that takes me to the auditory part, when both my kids had a severe auditory issue as well, and that's the same as vision. What they do, what the optometrists do, that they're experts in vision development, is they trick the two eyes into working together at the same time. The same thing with audiologists. They trick the ears into working together at the same time, because the eyes and the ears are only messengers. All of this is not vision and hearing, is actually the brain. And the doctors train the brain to work efficiently in the classroom. So when they're finished, they can hear what the teacher says. They can hear instruction. They can hear what their swim coaches are asking them to do. They can read a book and answer the questions. And their grades go up to, both my children are straight A's right now. And not only that my daughter is in accelerated English and French classes, which is 2 languages combined.
Wow, amazing. And something beautiful that in a previous interview Dr. Eric mentioned, which is it's like learning to ride a bicycle. It's learning to get the eyes to work together and then the ears to work together. And then once you learn it, once you train that, then that stays with you forever. Yeah.
Absolutely. And hardly ever, they say sometimes you might have to come back and brush up. I think that boys need a bit more attention than girls. But once you can read, it's like a light bulb goes on, and then you read faster and more and quicker, and then and everything falls in behind them, because they don't remember how they could not read before. They just know that now life is okay. They're getting treated like the same as every other kid in the classroom. They're getting their recesses. They're not missing out on anything. They're not spending 3 hours on their homework, and they're happy.
Wow. That makes such a huge difference, doesn't it? You mentioned the story, off camera, of how, one moment Johnny was reading some instruction manual or something like that, and then that's when the light bulb went off in him. Tell us that story.
So he was very resistant to therapy, because it's really hard. When you go into the doctor's office, they make you do exercises with your brain, and it hurts. It gives you headaches. It's not okay. Like they don't like it. So he would always not want to go, and we bribed him and begged him to go. And at the very end, Dr. Christina Murray said, look, if you go at it really hard for 3 months, it'll be over. So we bribed him. We told him we would take him to a Warriors basketball game if he would finish these 3 months.
Okay.
And he did. And during this time, he walked into the kitchen and he started reading instructions from a project they had to do at school. It had really difficult words, and I didn't even understand what he was asking him to do. And myself and my husband looked at each other and we're like, my gosh, he can finally read and comprehend. He knows what that page says.
Wow.
So that was the aha moment. He finished his therapy, we went off to a Warriors game, and the rest is history.
Wonderful. Oh my God. And I imagine the dynamics at home changed completely.
Completely.
Yeah.
Because parents don't understand why they're acting out, and they punish the kids for not doing their homework on time, for not doing what they're supposed to do. They don't want to do their homework because they've spent their entire day trying to keep up at school. Their brain is fried by the time they get home. The very last thing they want to do is homework. And then that is a problem with the parents, because they don't understand why not. Because sometimes parents, I didn't have that problem. I didn't understand why my kids couldn't do their homework. So you're always constantly fighting. It's always an argument. It's always a hot mess. They're always getting punished. And once they're sorted and once they're fixed, as I call it, that's gone. I don't do homework with my children anymore. They do their own homework.
Right.
I don't have to worry. They get it done. And it's a huge different dynamic, and they're not in trouble anymore. They're happy. They can go out with their friends, and they can do what every other kid does at nighttime.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah, that's wonderful. So you've created Bright Minds Processing so other parents don't have to go through this. So the idea is to be able to reach, hundreds, thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of children and parents who have these issues, and to make these changes for them and to make it really easy. And and part of it, tell us a little bit about what you want to do, the events that are going on in Palm Beach, and why should people care, really?
So the main thing, being a background in law enforcement, I want to make sure that every kid gets a chance to get an opportunity to be tested and go through therapy and be able to read and write and be able to make it through middle school. By middle school, if they're not reading, it's embarrassing. By high school, they're dropping out. They're either going to fall in with the wrong crowd, they're going to drop out of school, but either way, they're going to fall into the criminal justice system sooner or later. So my goal is to try and get every kid I can in Palm Beach County, starting with Palm Beach County, to go nationwide, to have kids tested by second grade, just to see, beyond 20/20 vision, do they have a vision issue? And if they do, get them the help that they need. And I'm going to raise awareness every way possibly I can. I have a crew of doctors working with us. They are passionate about what they do, helping kids. We're all on the same page. So going forward, I'd love to fundraise and raise enough money to do a documentary on what these kids go through and what these doctors can do to save them and help them, and so that they can just be the very best they can be. And one kid at a time, if we can stop one child going into the criminal justice system, that's my mission.
Wonderful. Yeah, very true. And as we've interviewed so many of doctors already, I mean, their success rate is really incredible. They can really make a huge difference in this. And the idea is then to bring awareness to the situation that for the moment it just goes undiagnosed or misdiagnosed.
Yeah, there's no medical diagnosis. Medical insurance is not going to cover it.
Right.
So it's coming from your pocket. For underprivileged kids, there's no way they're getting the help. It's not coming. And for parents that do have money and are willing to pay out of pocket for it, it's thousands of dollars. And it really and truly should be the school district helping these kids get the services they need, because in 6 months they could help these children, and then they don't have to spend another dollar on helping the children outside of that, because they won't need the help. But right now in Florida, our school districts, they don't recognize visual or auditory processing disorders, so therefore there is no help for them. It's not going to get paid. My mission is the federal law says that vision and hearing impaired falls under the Disability Act, and that it does affect education, so therefore the school district should help them get the help they need.
Okay.
That is the goal and mission, another goal and mission of Bright Minds, because we need to change legislation, we need to change how it's worded, so at the minimum the kids can get the help they need from the school during school time.
Yeah, absolutely right. So if you're a mom or a parent and your child is really having a hard time in school, at the very least, go a little bit deeper into researching and finding out if this can be a possible solution, or just look into it a little bit further, because it could solve a whole lot of issues that no one will tell you, at least at the moment, that there's a visual or auditory processing mismatch going on. What you're going to see is all kinds of resistance, tiredness,
but also, Federico, on we have a website, brightmindsprocessing.org, and on the very front page there's a checklist for both visual and auditory.
Right.
It would be interesting, if you do think that your child might have an issue with their vision, to do the checklist, and that will direct you to where you need to go. Okay. There's also an organization in the US called COVD, where they list the doctors that have 2 more years of training to be able to administer these tests and give therapy to these children, and they're called vision development optometrists. They are on the COVD website too. So if you're looking for a doctor in your area, there are many all over the country in your area.
Yes. And if you want to make a difference into this movement, into this cause, so that we can raise awareness about these issues, countrywide, certainly in Florida to start with, please get in touch with Sue and with Bright Minds Processing, and let's have a conversation in terms of what it is that you can do to help. Because there's a lot of ground to cover, isn't it?
And it takes us as parents, in particular, to move this forward so that we can get the help for other children too.